having these readings and sort of just deciding I'm just going to talk about this artist today and not try to continue and finish up. And also, I guess I don't have any notes. I'm just talking as opposed to lecturing. That's kept us on track on a level. So we're not really moving very strongly into the post-impressionist period, but I guess I should say a few words about that. Because it's been a long time since you guys read that brief thing from Groves Art Online about it. Remember the first week you had 2 little articles from that online encyclopedia to read, one on Impressionism, one on Post-Impressionism. You might want to go back and look at the Post-Impressionism one again because we're there now. But really, Post-Impressionism is a term that was only coined in the 1920s. And there are 2 reasons to coin it. One, the original Impressionist group, which was never a solid group, right? Remember, it was a different sort of lineup every single year. And Pissarro was in a lot of them, and Morisot was in a lot of them, but nobody was in all of them. And they had their 8th and last show in 1886. And by that time, the standard, the art world, the traditional art world in Paris had really broken up. And they were really the first rallying cry toward sort of killing the old establishment. By the end of the middle of the 1880s, there were numerous other venues for artists to show in. So their work was done in a way. And at the very last show, there were some artists whose work didn't fit the mold. And granted, we've seen a lot of artists whose works don't fit the mold anyway. Degas, Caillebotte, right? Don't really fit the mold. There isn't really a mold. But by 1886, there was in people's minds a mold. Does that make sense? So it was after 12 years of this stuff, plus the years leading up to the Impressionist show where they had been seen, there was an idea of what Impressionism meant and what Impressionists were doing. And in the 1886 exhibition, the very last one of the most important works in that exhibition was something we'll look at next week, which is Seurat's Grand Jacques, all the people on the side of the river all painted with pointillism. Right? Somebody's working on Seurat. Right, Evan. So, and that sort of heralded to people that, the old ways were changing. Okay? So, from 1886 on, we sort of begin to think about Impressionism branching out and doing things differently than had been done before in all sorts of different ways. And so Cezanne is kind of part of that, and his interest in sort of the structure of the composition, right? His idea of distilling things into cones and cylinders and playing cards, and it's sort of proto-cubism that we saw. So that's one avenue of post-impressionism. But like I said, the term doesn't exist. Well, hey, we're post-impressionists. You know what I mean? They're modern French painters is what they thought of themselves as. And in 1926, an artist named Roger Fry looked at these things and said, hey, there's something going on here with this second generation of Impressionist painters that's really drastically different. And a lot of it has to do with subjectivity. There's a sort of a blanket term. Even with Cezanne, we can sort of talk about that. There's something very subjective about the way he's approaching the scenes he paints. Whereas, arguably, with Monet, Sisley, Morisot, there's something more objective about it, capturing a particular visual phenomenon can be argued to be somewhat more subjective. And that what we get with Toulouse-Lautrec, Van Gogh, primaries, but Gauguin, Cezanne, we get a much more subjective approach. And for Toulouse-Lautrec, that's obvious. This is not how that guy looks, right? These are cartoonish. They're like caricatures that people are. Right? He's not obeying what he sees, but he's sort of expressing through it. And even the color choices are amplified and heightened in a way that doesn't try to emulate a color-like combination that might seem natural. Even Cezanne at its wildest, the colors were there, you know? But you would never get a Frankenstein-faced woman like the woman on the right, you know, with that amazing, it's not makeup, although it is a bit. She and the woman at the table are both heavily made up for the stage. And the one at the right is being caught by the footlights of the stage, which has given her that odd discoloration. But that coupled with the orange hair, right, the red hair, and we're going to see redheads, Toulouse-Lautrec seems to have something of a fetish for redheads. But we'll see that you see another one there with that amazing feather boa around her neck. And you can see that throughout his compositions, Toulouse-Lautrec is sort of, he's not concerned with making it look the way it might look. He's more concerned as an artist with these incredible outlays, like here, around the dress. But becomes sort of like larger puzzle pieces, because I've used that analogy before. Or even the shape of her head here, or the shape around her eyes. Or if we look back here at the woman straightening her hair in the mirror, how much she's interested in these shapes as they interact in her sight. And this came from his looking at Japanese prints. And you'll notice that how many of these, we've seen a few, and they're pretty neat, right? But we've seen with Japanese woodblock how outline, a sort of sinuous outline with a flat fill of color, characterize the style of this. And this is where Toulouse-Lautrec and others are getting these. Right? He had actually visited in the early 80s the studio of Van Gogh when Van Gogh was living in Paris, 1883 or so. And Van Gogh was collecting these Japanese prints. And this is where Toulouse-Lautrec got those lyrics. Again, to be above on the wall, right? When Toulouse-Lautrec visits Van Gogh on Rue Lafitte in Paris, what they would have had to say. I don't think I want to see them with him until the end of arguing, but when him and Toulouse-Lautrec are chatting about Japanese art, I would love to hear that. Now, I'm starting off with a work that's in Chicago rather than local simply because it's got him in it. Right? That's a self-portrait on the left. The short one is Toulouse-Lautrec. And we don't have one with him, so I thought I'd bring this in. But it also sets the stage for what we're going to do in this class, which is talk quite a bit about biography. Because as we get to this post-impressionist interest in subjectivity, right, that's kind of the glue that holds a lot of it together, talking about what the artist was thinking and doing and how he was living his life becomes a figure of greater importance to us, right? And so these works are incredibly autobiographical. Right? They really are, and this isn't true that the Impressionists have been illustrating their lives in a way, but Toulouse-Lautrec doesn't often go outside, you know? It's not about his life on the streets of Paris. It's about the life that he lived frequenting these cafes, because he was a bit of a drunkard, right? He was a bit of a party guy. Loved hanging out in the most noisy, boisterous cafes, despite the fact that he came from an incredibly wealthy and very traditional background. His parents were a count and a countess. Le Comte de Toulouse-Lautrec was his father, and a comtesse, right? They were landed aristocracy. That means their lineage goes back to the Middle Ages when they were barons, right? They were counts. They had peasants working for them, right? They were linked to the French throne. Thus the name Toulouse, the city in southwestern France, right? That's where their land came from. So he's the 1%, right? He's incredibly well-placed in French society. He's got a patrimony, okay? But his parents were first cousins. And this was not uncommon in the landed aristocracy of Europe to marry that close in the bloodline But he ended up, like I said, with immense wealth, an aristocratic lineage, and a genetic disorder. He had weak bones. So when he was a child, 12 years old, no, 13 years old, sorry, he was getting up from a chair. Just, I mean, simple as that, just getting up from a chair, and he broke his left femur, right, his thigh bone, just shattered it. Getting out of a chair, okay? It's healing, mending, not too well. The next year he breaks the other one, right? This didn't cripple him, but it did stunt his growth. Neither leg completely healed. And by the time he was an adult, he stood 4'1", right? So that's in there, the short one. You often hear them talked about as being a dwarf or a midget, but that's not the case, right? Stunted growth from a bone disorder, all from the fact that his family, that he's got this name, Toulouse-Lautrec, right? Of Toulouse and Lautrec, of these two great families. Right? So we'll look a little bit more at the Bard, the Moulin Rouge. Did you guys see the musical a couple years back? I never did. Huh? It's awesome. It won the Oscar, didn't it? I never saw it, and I should, because of this. But there have been 4 or 5 movies with Toulouse-Lautrec in them. In fact, in the 1950s, a guy won an Oscar for playing him by strapping his legs up like this and putting his knees in shoes and walking around with his legs strapped up. Jose Ferrer, and he got an Oscar in 1954 for playing. And I think it's called Moulin Rouge as well, about the life. Because it's a fascinating lifestyle. Because the thing is his mother was a manic depressive from what I've read. I don't know how we can diagnose that. But nonetheless, she was somewhat controlling and really wanted to try to keep the family honor intact. But Toulouse-Lautrec, after he had been crippled, wanted nothing more than just to slum it for the rest of his life. And so he moves to the Montmartre, right? It'll come up on the screen. The Martyrs Mount. It's this mountain in Paris. Not a mountain, but a hill, right? And it's the one part of Paris that Haussmannization didn't touch. Because the streets wind up the side of this hill and around, and they're wandering, and some of them go straight down the stairs and whatnot. And it was impossible to cut boulevards through it because of the topography. And it remained in the 19th century, and even to this day, it's the 18th arrondissement. It remains the center of the demi-monde, which we talked about, the low life, right? So it's the best place in Paris to go get your pocket picked, right? Easily, the best place in Paris to get your pocket picked. Prostitution, bars, everywhere. Not that Paris has any shortage of bars anywhere, but I mean, cabarets. And these, in our collective memory, become these wonderful places of display, but it was really kind of seedy then as now. And this is where Toulouse-Lautrec decided to hang out, with all of these marginalized people of Paris. Because, we can psychoanalyze the heck out of this, but the idea is that we think that he felt marginalized as well because of his growth disorder, right? So he goes to hang out with the rest of them. And it just pissed his mother off to no end, right? She wanted traditional respectability for the family. And he's out there, and he just would get publicly blasted, and in, boisterous conversations, and sometimes arguments, not fistfights or anything, but just, loud interactions with these people that are well beneath him in his mother's mind, right? Jude, you had your hand up. Demi-monde? The other one. I said a lot of words. I don't know which one he was. If you can, when you play the tape back, you can find it and see if you can figure it out, or email me and tell me what minute it was in the tape, and I'll try to play it back. I don't have a script. I'm sorry. I got a list of slides, right? And that's it. So anyway, there he is. The one thing his mother did do fairly early on was to encourage his art. By the time he was 3, his mother was telling him that he's a really good draftsman. By the time he was 3. He did this when he was 16. Nice, huh? We should all be. It's not very big, as you can probably tell. It's not like yay. Right? A trap is not any danger. That cart, that horse-drawn cart, is called a trap, right? But it's his family out on an outing. I would imagine it's his mother with her groom, not husband, but horse attendant, right? Look at that great big, what is it, an Airedale or something, in the big white dog, right, in the back there as well. But a wonderful painting and amazing amount of talent for a very young age, right? Coming back into it, scratching into the wet paint with the heel of the brush. But sort of interested in, documenting his own life with his family. So there's the evil mom who doesn't want him to go hang out at these places, and they're still growing up and going for a country outing with his family. Dog. Flesh. It even says, I don't know what flesh means. It's not flesh, right? But it says in the corner, la flesh, so it's a female dog. But what a cutie she is. So I think I always call dogs she's. Just fine. Cats are all she's and dogs are all she's. But anyway, she's very, very cute, and she's a very sweet puppy. And here's 17 years old, the jerk, right? We should all be so good when we're so young. But like I said, he spent the majority of his time hanging out at bars. There's a sketch he did down in Richmond of him. It's kind of cute, isn't it, in a way? There he is at the bar with his friends being served by... And I was, as I was putting this in the slideshow, if I really didn't have a ton of slides to get through, which I do, I thought about comparing this to that Manet picture of the bar at the Folies Bergère, where the girl is serving the drinks and you don't see anybody but the reflection. Because it almost seems like an answer to that in a way. And that was in 1882, so this is 5 years later. But we have the redhead at the bar, the guys in top hats, there's a mirror behind her, But we see there's no Toulouse-Lautrec there. I don't mean to belittle him by saying that, but there's Toulouse-Lautrec there sidling up to the bar to have himself some drinks as well. And as you can see with a lot of these, they're incredibly sketchy. He, in many ways, one of the things you'll see with post-impressionism is artists really engaging with the paint medium in different ways. We already saw this with Cézanne, didn't we? Where he's really interested in his interaction with the substance of the paint. And Toulouse-Lautrec is too, but in a very different way. What he does, the swanky French word for this, which I'm not going to bother you with because I can't remember it, but he turpentines it down, just really, really thin, so that you can often see right through it, even down to the ground that he's painting on. And he uses a bunch of alternative surfaces so that he can, as he's doing it, get these washy effects, So that wouldn't work if you were working on a heavy matte canvas. So what he does is he works on cardboard. Really simple cardboard, and nothing fancy either. I mean, it's not cardboard like you would buy because it's 19th century cardboard. It's still essentially cardboard. We'll see in some of the pictures. You can see it through. But he's never happy to sort of just take a piece of cardboard, paint it. Sometimes he'll get the cardboard out, and he'll get to the corner of it, and he'll add another piece here, glue it on, right, so he can make it bigger, and another piece over here, and you kind of keep extending the composition out so you can see that many of these things have 4 or 5 pieces of cardboard stuck together as well. But again, it's that conscious dialogue, if you will, between the artist and his medium. And again, each of these artists doing something really, really different with it. This will become clear when we look at Seurat on Tuesday. So if we look back at these pictures, they show us this autobiography in a way of the things that were most important to him. We get a lot of bar pictures and some racing pictures as well, which brings up an interesting correlation with Degas. He also does images of the houses of prostitution that were dotting the streets of the Montmartre. Was it Montmartre, Jude? Is the word Montmartre? No? Okay. Well, we'll figure it out, right? So there's the word Montmartre, which just means Martyr's Mount in French, and is this place to this day that's, like I said, it's seedy. And the Moulin Rouge only opened in 1889, so it's a brand new bar, right? This is like 3 to 5 years after that opened. And everybody who lived in the area was flocking there and staying there literally all night. And here we see this combination, and this is important to keep in mind. We saw it with Manet as well when we looked at the Folies Bergère, is that these are not just pubs, but they're entertainment venues as well. That they have multiple stages, inside and out. There's a garden out back. I just saw a photo, I wish I'd seen it earlier, from the end of the stage in the garden of the Moulin Rouge, where they had a full-size, like 30-foot tall elephant that was an automaton, right, that could actually move, and had a stage that would open up in its side that they could perform on. And I saw a picture of it. It's a pretty convincing-looking elephant, given that it's, crafted out of paper, wooden paper. It's pretty cool, right? Things people could do that with. So here we see him frequenting his bar. And one of the things you see with this, and I think this is really kind of fascinating, is that he does this a lot where he sections off the hubbub from other activities. And it's a really fantastic composition if you think about the way in which he uses these diagonals, right, to draw your eye back and across through the composition. But you'll notice if you think, and even though Toulouse-Lautrec is in the picture, if you think about Toulouse-Lautrec, the man painting the canvas, or where he's put you as the viewer, right? That's something we talked about a lot, is that one of the things figurative painters do is they situate the viewer relative to the activity. And that makes a big difference on how we interpret activity. Do we have a bird's eye view? Do we have a bug's eye view? Are we up close? Are we far away? These things have an impact on our subjective reaction to the pictures, right? So if you think about where Toulouse-Lautrec has situated you, I think it's fascinating that we're on the other side of that railing. And he does that more, not a ton, but often enough to take note of. That you've got this group of 5 people gathered around the table, pretty deep into their drinks, it looks like, right? You have some close-ups to see. You have 2 women together, one doing her hair, other people behind them sort of lost in the muddle of mirrors. Toulouse-Lautrec was a friend, but you're the viewer isolated from all of that conviviality. And there's this odd sense of alienation in a lot of his work. So even if you look at the 5 people's table, the redhead with the other 4, none of them are really looking at each other. None of them seem to really be engaged. There's some people at the table, but they stopped sort of interacting, even though they're sitting there together. No 2 people are looking eye to eye with each other. And the reading we have for Tuesday, and you'll be happy to see that I will not make, you don't have to do a response for it. You need to be working on your papers now. Okay, you've done enough responses. Right? But I do want you to do the reading. It's a fairly short one on Seurat for Tuesday. But Nauquin, our friend Linda Nauquin, talks there about this 1880s on increase in social isolation, particularly in the cities. And that seems to be a theme that kind of burbles beneath the surface, right? Bubbles beneath the surface of a Toulouse-Lautrec picture, right? So it seems like it's noisy and convivial, but they're not really talking to each other. They're not really listening to each other. Everybody's looking opposite directions. Maybe except for Toulouse-Lautrec and his friend. Right? And we can identify these people. This is his cousin, Gabriel de Saint-Laurent. His cousin, he's a physician, and he was actually very, very tall and thin. And I think Toulouse-Lautrec likes hanging out with him because they made this pair, right, of 6 foot something and a little Toulouse down below. And I think he enjoyed that sort of show-offiness. Can you imagine? People are going to turn and look, right, when you walk in. If you've got a 4'1" guy with a 6'2" guy, and people are going to be like, what the heck, right? I kind of want to be at that bar when that happens, you know? So anyway, it is his cousin, so they just hung out all together all the time, liked each other quite a bit. And we can identify almost all the people that habituate to Lucifer's pictures because they're all part of his life, they're all his friends. So in the background, the woman in purple is a professional can-can dancer named Maud Galou. Her real name is Louise Weber. And I'm not quite sure who that is with her. I have a picture coming up of her with her sister, but I don't think that's her. But as you can see, this gives you a clue that all of the walls are lined with mirrors in this picture. And that, again, with the exception of her, nobody's really looking into the mirrors, and mirrors are reflections of reality. They aren't really reality. That could add to this theme of dissociation that often runs through his pictures. So there she is doing her hair, Lagrue, a famous dancer. And there are lots of pictures by Toulouse-Lautrec of her. I think I probably have a few coming up. Sitting at the table, a writer, Edward Dujardin, a professional dancer whose stage name was La Macarona. She was Spanish or maybe Moroccan, like maybe Spanish of Moroccan descent, and is wearing very, very thick cake makeup, right, to give her face that pale nature. You'll notice that Toulouse-Lautrec doesn't seem to like people all that much. He never makes people very attractive, it seems, you know, almost as if the caricature is enhancing the ugliness of these. And if you couple that with that amazing hat, those red things, wouldn't it make a great Halloween costume? You could do with some cardboard, you know, get a hat and just make those things off the top of this there, and then find an old man's suit down at the Goodwill that has this ugly-ass window painting, you know, the orange window painting thing, and sort of cut it up or something, and then give yourself this kabuki theater makeup, you know, with a bright red lipstick and green eyeshadow and a little purple neck thing, right? It's all very lurid, and this is a fun issue because almost everybody, it seems, at this time, especially going to the Moulin Rouge and these major bistros and cafes, by this period, 1880s, 1890s, are really dressing the most outlandish ways in order to be seen. Was it that way in the movie, Sarah? As well, people dressed like all over the place. Yeah. And I think that's probably what makes it attractive as a theme for a musical is that people are already doing this, dressing in ways so that people will stop and look at them. In the same way that Toulouse-Lautrec in the background is doing exactly that. The rest of the people at the table, Paul Sescoe is a photographer. The fellow with that great cowcatcher mustache. And the guy who just looked like he is trashed. I've always felt that he was just like, at this point he's not making any jokes anymore. He's just laughing at whenever anybody else says and hoping they'll buy him another drink. He's a winemaker, no less, right? Maurice Guibert is actually a vintner. He owns not a wine shop, but a vineyard, and obviously it's taken with what he's doing. The redhead that you see there with her back to us, we don't know for sure, but there's a good chance she's the dancer Jane Avril, who Toulouse-Lautrec paints quite a few times, makes posters for her performances, and the dress is right, the hair is right, the time in his life is right, so that's a good guess. That's what we'll say who she is. Again, these are all people that crop up in Toulouse-Lautrec's pictures again and again and again. I can see them again tonight. But once you get to know the cast of characters, you can start to pick them out. You can see them in these different pictures. Finally, the woman in front of the footlights, there is an English actress and performer named Mae Milton, and he actually made a poster for her performance as well, where she's now caught with that footlight, right? The light coming up from her feet at the stage. So it's these sorts of scenes of bar life that Toulouse-Lautrec is really best known for. And we're lucky that in NGH we've got 5 or 6 of these to look at more closely. Some of them of the drinking side of things, and some of them of the performance side of things. So we'll work our way through those. Here is La Blue, the woman who is at the mirror on the right with her sister. Is that the same woman? It kind of looks like almost the same profile pose, doesn't it? But she looks significantly thinner in the Chicago painting than she does in ours. This is one of those thinned out works on cardboard, right? And you'll begin to see the medium as we look at them more closely. And I think the reason he's using it is so that he can get these areas like the sister's dress, where even though some of the pleats have been delineated, most of it ends up with this really flat wash. Right? And that's because he's taking the oil paint, he's thinning it with turpentine down to where it's almost like watercolor instead. Right? And that effect for Toulouse-Lautrec is attempting to get the same sort of effect that he's seen in Japanese prints and Japanese woodblocks, where you get a watercolor wash effect through the localized placement of the inks. Around the two of them, as we move in, by the way, her dress was even lower cut in the front. It came down to about like belly button, sort of barely covering her breasts. And we have some pictures of her that way too, but we see in both of these strips on the back. And it looks almost like the same dress, doesn't it? In this one. And you'll see in all of them how he's really backed up in these shapes and these enhancing them that the clothing makes, because they become these wonderful design areas. We often link Toulouse-Lautrec to Art Nouveau because of these sort of serpentine lines that wander through. Around this, you get a sense of the busyness of the cabaret. There's the spectators on the other side of a railing back here, watching more people crowding around the foreground. Again, his caricatures don't make anybody look particularly handsome, but there's some sense of the international quality with the turban that the fellow's wearing here, for example. But then we get people with this sort of discolored cigarette ash face back here. And then these colors that have really nothing to do with what he sees, but just sort of add this color accent. These amazing sort of reddish haze that you see here that heighten the color that we see in our ear, and imagine these are earrings back here, right? He's using color not as a descriptor, but he's using color instead as a mood enhancer. Many of his compositions he will then rework as lithography prints, lithographs. And so here's the exact same composition we worked, and you can see that some of the ideas that he's been playing with, the flattening of the forms into these shapes that reassert the flatness of the surface. These become even more pronounced when we get to the lithography stage. That wonderful blue coat of the gent with the mutton chops and his back to us. Right? The way in which the coat, this is even true in the painting, the way in which the coat of the second man, the black coat, just bleeds into her choker around her neck, almost to the point where it looks like he's got his arm stuck out over there or something, you know? This is important because Toulouse-Lautrec ended up having almost as important a career as a printmaker as he did as a painter. He became so adept at this through his study of Asian prints, Japanese prints. And look at his signature, HTL in the corner in the circle. It's very similar to the way Asian printmakers, Japanese printmakers sign theirs as well in the monogram. Similar to that. He's picked up on that, showing his indebtedness to it. But once it became apparent that he was so good in this sort of bold, graphic, simple quality from this, kind of abstraction, that all of the places even going, like the Moulin Rouge, asked him for posters. And some of the most famous images from this era are these advertisements for performances by La Goulou or by Jane Avril or by Loie Fuller, the three most famous of the dancers from this period. Yeah. That's just the initials. Oh, that's his signature. That's his signature, right? Yeah, this is a monogram. This part right here. Yeah. That's a monogram. Right, and that's not a monogram. That's usually it's rendered on the axis. Here. I can't read it right now, but these French and monograms are before the National Gallery. Okay. I could download it at 4,000 and tell you exactly what it says. But one of the things the curators will do will document. And that help us to know who owned it before we did, right? And also would help us to know if it was hot or not, rather than on the other side. Right? This is not an art collection. The Western Guard doesn't tend to collect posters. But nonetheless, there she is, doing her can-can thing, La Goulou, with this other amazing dancer, this really tall guy who would just sort of do this strutting thing around her, right, in the foreground. I forget his name. Right? So, again, all of the qualities that we've seen in this painting and in its art prints really ensure his success as an advertising commercial printmaker as well. Because those broad areas of a single flat tone read really well from the distance, capture the sense of the vibrancy of a crowd. And then the flatness of, the great flatness of the dancing figure in the foreground with its incredible cheekbones allows us now to look at the form of La Goulou as she's dancing. These dances, both the can-can and the quadrille, were pretty scandalous at the time. It's hard to imagine it today because all you get to see is a little bit of shin, But the fact that you have to see all that underwear, right? Even though it doesn't let you see body, you just see underwear. I saw England, I saw France. I saw La Goulou's underpants. But they were seen as somewhat scandalous, and that's added to the fact that it's because these were, this is the soft underbelly of Paris, right? This was not high society by any means, but rather was slumming it. Do we have a DC equivalent? You sit hard at 8th Street, you go down to the pub or something like that, When I was in New York, okay, now I don't have too much well. But I lived in the East Village. I used to love going and hanging out at really rough bars where beer was $1. And it just was, and it's so great. I was a grad student in art history at, a very competitive school, but here I am down, that was drinking Rolling Rocks for $1. That's kind of that's an analogy, right? Just, putting on some beat up leather coat and torn jeans and going and hanging out somewhere, right? This is what the Trump is doing. That's what these places were very much like. But they're new and they're kind of on everybody's radar, right? They're kind of a big thing, but they're also a little seedy, right? Things happen there it's a honky tonk. That would be a nice analogy. We don't want those days. Here's another one, the Moulin de la Galette. Moulin means mill, and that's because here on the hill, this mountain, this hill in Paris, there were a number of old windmills there from before Paris had spread to take them over, right? So the Moulin Rouge, the red windmill, Moulin de la Galette was the windmill of the cake, right? Made probably cake flour. Yeah. Now the mills were long gone, and the Moulin Rouge is on the front of the Moulin Rouge was a total fake, right? But it was part of the mythology of that area. So the Moulin de la Galette is another of these cafe concerts That's what you call them, a cafe concert, right? A place where you can, in fact, sit around and drink all night. Things are going on, things are happening, but you can also see a show. Because this was a bit rough, a bit outside of proper society, they became these places where people could live their lives the way they wanted to without having to sort of answer to social proprieties. This is what attracted Toulouse-Lautrec. This is what attracted prostitutes to sort of live in the open. This is what attracted lesbians and gays. And it's been commented in this picture where really all but that one guy with the mustache, maybe the figure in the back with his head cut off by the frame, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women. And it's been suggested that these may well be prostitutes and lesbians and the marginalized people of Paris society, living in the open in the place where they could. He does pictures of women dancing together, which would have been uncommon in a taboo in a more respectable place. Here you can also see, I think very clearly in my photo here, how he's put together 3 pieces of cardboard. Can you make the T out down there on the left-hand side to come into here across, where he's probably started off with this group here and decided he needed to extend that composition, right, to make it work. Even though he cut it off in the mind's eye here and here, it works fairly well, right? But he decided he wanted to add more of the activity of the area. Again, there's this washed-out oil paint that gives it that diaphanous sort of quality that's closer to the woodcut aesthetic. I couldn't identify the people here, sorry. But again, his sort of almost psychotic obsession with redheads. It's just everywhere you look. And I don't know if, were they redheads or is it a wonderful bright orange accent that he can bring to this extraordinary, otherworldly picture quality. One of the things that this picture is not bringing out, and I've yet to get a photo that does it, is that the drink in the middle, this one here, is absinthe. Do you know the word absinthe? Right? It was outlawed for many, many years. It's distilled wormwood, and it's a strong hallucinogen. Right? It's not just like alcohol. It was supposedly give you very, very strong hallucinogen. It's called the Green Fairy, and the ads for it would often show something green kind of floating up out of the glass or the bottle. And you would pour it, because it was slightly bitter, and you would pour it over sugar and into your glass. There was a bit of a ritual around drinking absinthe. And then it was outlawed in the 1920s for having these psychotic reactions, or causing these psychotic reactions. And it was replaced by pastis, which is similar in flavor. And very recently it's come back on the market again, but I don't think they use wormwood anymore. Right? I think but it's green, and it's this amazing color of green. Like, have you seen Tony look? It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful colors, is the colored absinthe, because it comes out of the bottle clear. But when it touches water or ice, it turns cloudy immediately, right? Like ouzo does. Lots of liqueurs will do this. They'll immediately cloud up on contact with water. And so anyway, that's what she's drinking here. And that adds to that sort of demi-monde character that we're talking about. That sort of, this is out there, right? This is I guess it would be like, a picture of an opium den or something. That would be a nice analogy for this, right? But it was accepted. It wasn't illegal or anything, but it was, people knew what its qualities were. And like anything, I think that the whole hallucinating part of it is blown out of control. Like, did you ever see Reefer Madness? That movie in the 50s was supposed to tell people not to smoke dope. And they're like, they smoke a little bit of right? And then, give me more, right? Faster, right? And it's just not the way it works, right? And not that I'm advocating it. Right. But absinthe is, I think that they could have played it up in order to get rid of it, right? So, anyway, there's that. Another of these cafe pictures. And it looks like our present, the Spanish dancers we just saw. Macarona, right? But offer the Grignan again. Look at the degree to which he's left that cardboard just untouched and sketched around it. And also the degree to which Toulouse-Lautrec doesn't really, I don't think he likes people, right? That's the same hat, isn't it? I just noticed that. It's got the same three, that's got to be her, right? That's the same hat. But they've sidled up to the bar to get a couple more glasses of absinthe to take back to the table with them, or drink it right there. Behind him on the other side, cross-dressing is another, presumably lesbian, on the right, dressed in men's clothing. That again adds to the sort of, everybody's rubbing shoulders together. There are people there that are like Toulouse-Lautrec of the, the aristocracy. There are other people that are very well-to-do people, actresses that are on the up and up, and other actresses that are side jobs, if you get my meaning. Rubbing shoulders with everybody. It was this amazing melting pot of all levels of French society, but they knew full well that this place that they were hanging, these places they were hanging out in, were dodgy, right? We're not the best of places. But Toulouse-Lautrec hung out there, and the sketches that he was in turning the paintings of the people that he saw, the people that he knew. Many of these, I think, were done not in the cafe themselves, but back at home. But we've seen it so often with the Impressionists that this whole idea that they take some site is a bit of a myth. Here, Maxime de Thomas was a painter himself, but mostly of set designs, theater designs, right, backdrops and whatnot. And so he's looking on at a bunch of performers apparently near or going on the stage, but he's at a typical cafe table, and you can tell he's a man of respectability, right? He's got this silver-tipped cane, and in fact, Toulouse-Lautrec called him the Great Tree, the Gros Arbre, because he was a huge person, 6'4", and fat. Right? And he was 300 pounds, just this monster of a man. But also, he never cracked a smile. He had this stone face, right? And so Toulouse-Lautrec would like to give everybody nicknames, called him the Great Tree. And he also, unlike almost everybody else, why is this comparison with the dancer in the picture, right? He wanted to wear clothes that didn't call attention to himself. I guess walking around at 6'4" and 300 pounds is hard not to call attention to yourself, but he wanted to dress really sedately. So he wears nothing but black all the time. None of the sort of outlandish colors and fashions and scars and whatnot that we see with so many of the other sitters in Toulouse-Lautrec picture. And I think Toulouse-Lautrec is able to capture some of that privacy maybe that he's trying to maintain. But not pitifully so, you know what I mean? I think you're right about the loneliness, but I don't think it's like, oh, poor Maxine. I think it's kind of what, some of these people want their loneliness. Some of these people, solitude is maybe a better word, right? Some people want their solitude. And notice the degree to which, even though those people, that butt is right in the table almost, right? But what a role that vertical pillow on the right over his shoulder plays in sort of separating him from that group of people, right? Pushing him off away from the stage. Little touches like that just make the composition that much better by pulling them off. And I think the lost profile. What's interesting is the degree to which it's almost the same drawing for his face and shoulders and placement down to the waist as it is for Alfred Le Guignan, right? So from waist up, these two figures are in critical figures, right? Yeah. So you get one shoulder coming toward us, the other back, the head turned half or 3/4 away from us. Right? But how different the feeling is. It's about the placement of the other things, but also here we find that somebody looking at it, even though she's doing it through that incredibly dense makeup. That acts as like the mirror, right? It becomes a facade that separates who we really are from who we appear to be. I was amazed. I remember when I saw this, I was always amazed that maybe it was the Toulouse Lautrec. It doesn't remind me of some other stuff, you know. She was a painter. She and Toulouse Lautrec studied under the same painter in Paris. And here she's at another of these cafe concerts called the Bastille, not to be confused with the French prison that was burned down during the Revolution, but named after it. And again, having her glass of absinthe. Painted her on a number of different occasions. I think the other thing that sets us apart from Toulouse-Lautrec is there's a sort of direct engagement and honesty in the picture that we tend not to see in his works. But the cafe stood at the center. He did a whole series of 20 prints called the Cafe Concert, where he captured all of his friends at all of these different cafes that he himself frequented as well. And these are often done in a much more sketchy manner than some of the multicolored prints we've seen, or even more sketchy than the paintings we've been looking at. So the people that he knows, in this case Ducas, at a cafe called the Ambassadors, as part of a sequence of prints. He also did images of the non-bar side of things. He also did images of the concert side of the cafe concert, of the performances. And I think this one, I'm running behind, so I'm going to skip by some of the comparisons I was going to talk about here. But I thought this was kind of fascinating. It's a theme that we've seen before, right? This is the concert loge. This is that private box from which to watch a concert. And I can't tell you for sure if it's a swanky concert, a ballet, such as what Cassatt takes her young girls out seeing, or if it's one of these cabaret shows, which is what I think, that Toulouse-Lautrec was more famous for frequenting. But what made this interesting for me was, I sort of was thinking of this picture where the guy is watching the woman from across the way from the top. This guy's watching her too, and it's like, dude, she's got eyes, you know? Stop looking at her breast. And he's sort of leaning over her shoulder, and he's look down at it. Is she holding I can't tell though, is she holding a bill of fare there? Does she have the flyer for the performance? There's still something kind of odd and crowding and sexualized about this, and we'll see this in other Toulouse-Lautrec as well. But when I was doing this on my computer, I didn't see what she was holding. It does look like she's got the program in her hand. So I could forgive him a little bit. But there's something a little masher-like about this, as if he's moving in. You can imagine him trying to catch a whiff of her perfume as he gets a look at the program as well. Multiple images similar to this of people at these theatrical performances. And again, the theater for him is an important theme, as it was for Cassatt, as it was for Degas, and we'll also see prostitution as an important theme for Toulouse-Lautrec. But again, this is all autobiographical. This is his milieu, right? This is where he hangs out. This is what he does day in and day out. And we'll end with three more of these pictures, paintings on cardboard of these performances. So here we are on the dance floor at the Moulin Rouge. And the woman on the right in the green is dancing in a dance called the quadrille, which is very similar to the can-can, which is all about showing your stockings and your undies, right? Your bloomers. And so she's hiking them up to get started. This is right when the quadrille is about to start. So she'll kick them up higher in the way that La Goulou did elsewhere. And I think that the couple on the left, which seems somewhat more respectable, it's hard to say, isn't it? When I first read this picture, I was thinking that the couple on the left is looking at her and going like, I'm not so sure about all of this. As if they sort of come into this low-life area. But then, if you look at what the woman whose dress isn't painted at all, right, because it's blue marks, well, she's hiking hers up too, isn't she? With her hands, you can see the wrinkles around it as she's pulling. So she's about to start doing this dance with and there's something about this almost like a challenge, in a way, face-off, if you will, high-kicking face-off. But again, there's that undercurrent of what was deemed at that time to be an appropriate sexual behavior, was the idea of two women preparing to dance with one another, even though one of them is kind of escorted with that cheek-boning fellow on the left. It looks as if she maybe is about to begin responding to this call to dance by the woman on the right. Again, no one is particularly attracted in any of these, because the French people are often depicted in sort of very, very ugly ways. This is a more scripted performance. This is from an opera. So this is a choreographed dance that was an interlude in operetta, a small opera, called Chiperic. And Chiperic was written 1860s or so, and this was a revival of the operetta. And it tells the story of a 6th century king of France, Frankish king, so even before France exists, who tries to strike a peace accord with the Goths from Spain, the Visigoths. And he does so by marrying the daughter of the Visigothic king. Right? That's the story. And the story, the operetta, is all melancholy. It's full of murder and intrigue. Right? The brother, I think it is, of the princess who gets married to the Frankish king plots to kill them. Right? So it's not a happy play, but it does have, as an opera, a dance in the middle. And so the woman that's in the center, the actress, whose name is Marcel Lender, is dancing this musical interlude, which is what the only thing that Toulouse tries to picture from this. It's not at all interested in the intrigue, the court intrigue, the possible tragedy that's part of the story. He's interested in her. He's interested in the dance. He's almost like he's Chiperic, right? Because he's the one that's going to marry this Frankish king, and that's the king in the back on the throne. There are two kings back there, but the one that's seated higher, I believe, is our Frankish king. The other one with a big ruddy red beard may be her father, right, in the play. So they're the two that are going to strike the accord. But that's the whole court back there, right down to having a jester as well. And then that's her brother on the right, watching her with two court members behind him. So the dance interlude from an opera. Now, this was performed for a 3-month run in 1895. This is a really huge picture. This is about 5 by 5 feet or so. But Chiperic was performed in 1895, and I think he worked on this picture later. Right, didn't finish it for another year. But while it was running for 3 months, that's about 90 days, right? Toulouse-Lautrec went 20 different times. He was just enthralled because he was stuck on Marcel Lender. He even said so. He had his words. He said he would have these little fires for women that didn't ever lead to anything, he said, and would burn out so quickly that it was never a big deal. And she called him a creepy little man. Because he was always hanging around drawing her. And was just obviously, well, not obviously, but he was enamored with her. And that inspired him to keep going to see her. So there are all these drawings of her. Here she is taking a bow on stage. Another member of court behind her. There's a king back there as well. Right? And this is a lithograph, but very, very sketchy one where we see her in full profile. And a much more attractive picture is a multicolored lithograph of her performing in bust length. Again, another of these redheads in whom he's originally smitten. Right? And here she's wearing the exact same headdress and choker and costume that she's wearing in the larger picture as well. These are all from the run of that performance. Right? What's interesting is he does give us all the trappings of the play, and even a curtain drawn across and behind the thrones on the left to give you a sense of the theatrical space. You can even see the lines coming down that hold the curtain up for this part of the play. And like the picture in Chicago we started with, you have a sense of the artificial lighting coming from the footlights down below, especially with the brother on the right. And he gives us all these trappings of the different characters in the play. I love that court jester. Looks like he's sneezing almost or something, spitting. But of course, he's a court jester. He's supposed to look like that. I also love the way that Toulouse-Lautrec has handled the diaphanous undergarment of the skirt. Even though this is a scripted performance, it's picked up some of that can element, right? So that teasing of getting to see some black stockings above the ankle. And in this case, very, very pink, frilly undergarments beneath the more proper clothes up above. Everybody in their stage makeup. But they're not nearly as interesting to him as she is, and in particular, this is why I read that theater picture so well, is he's obviously like into her chest, right? And the fact that it seems to be nearly spilling out of her costume, and if we look back at the other two drawings, I think that becomes part of what he's interested in as well. And then, if you look at that brother on the right, and follow the line of his gaze, it's just an actor, after all. But he has a better view than Toulouse-Lautrec does as to what's, so to speak, going on here. Right. So again, it's eroticized. It's very much eroticized, the stockings here. But at the same time, one of the things that's wonderful about late 19th century painting is the degree to which it becomes abstract after a certain point. You know, as you dive in, and we've seen this with so many painters, where we get close enough and all of a sudden you just get these flashes of paint that could have come from Jackson Pollock, right, abstract expressionist painter, particularly here in the pink that you see. And there's the actor. Right, the look on his face is one of revelation, if you will. Yeah, and the clothing, he exaggerates the clothing to look like that, right? It almost looks like a Disney cartoon, like The Little Mermaid or something, you know? Because the waist is impossibly thin, isn't it? Right? And even with Marcel Lender, if you're going to have that kind of a shoulder or chest cavity, you're going to have bigger hips. It's just that's a very odd sort of anatomy. And then the artificial, I think he loves the artificiality of all of this, too. Apart from the queasy sexual stuff, he loves this artificiality of the light coming from below, of the stagey cake makeup that gives her this unhuman look. And that makes her lips that much redder, the eyeshadow that much greener, the hair that much more orange, you know. He loves that element of it, and the fact that what the Moulin Rouge was, all of these cathedrals were a place to go and be someone else in a way, you know? And if we think about Toulouse-Lautrec himself as the scion of a long-standing aristocratic family, then he's not being himself when he goes to these places. Maybe he is, but he's not being the person he was born to be, if that makes sense. Right? He's not living the status that he should have been, or his mother might have told him he should have been. And that artifice, that acting the role, is something I think that we see throughout his works. This is his last work, and given that the majority of the paintings in the National Gallery tend to be rather static, this is life-checking day at the local brothel, right? Where the process, because prostitution was regulated, it was more on the up and up than it tends to be anymore. I'm not advocating for prostitution, but once it's regulated, right, then there are rules in place. That's what regulations mean. And so there were sanitary rules, right? There were regular checkups to make sure that they weren't diseased. And so here we see two prostitutes still with their black stockings on, and again, that, I don't want to say fetish, but that interest in the the stockings, right, is something we've seen throughout his works. But they've lifted up their blouses so that a doctor can check to make sure that they're not diseased or covered in bedbugs. Right? And Rue de Moulin was the name of a very prominent house of prostitution that he painted on a number of different occasions. I wonder if the woman in the foreground, which on the right is still in France, but the woman in the foreground with the black stockings on the right, if that's not the same woman that we have here, lifting up her skirt, the same redhead in each of them. Not the one in the pink, but the other one. Given that he's not particularly good with portraiture, if you know what I mean, that he alters faces often, it could well be. He does focus on the sort of indignity of this act, having to show your private parts. It's a little creepy if you think about him having seen this or imagined it, inserting himself in a position or a place where he does not belong, puts him in the same camp as Degas. Would make a nice comparison, right, between the two of them, about how they look at prostitutes. Keep in mind that many of their models in the studio were prostitutes as well, so the idea of a prostitute as a subject matter for your painting was nothing new to them, by any means. There is this kind of voyeuristic quality to it, where, you know, you're not supposed to be seeing this, especially as a man, and you get a chance to, and then there's that incredible look on her face, though, like as if she knows you're watching, right? And I think what is absolutely wonderful about this picture is this theme we've come to a number of times where, you know, Impressionists, post-Impressionists are really carrying on the traditions of the realist school, which was finding dignity in mundane labor. Right? That was the movement that led to Impressionism. And I think that Toulouse-Lautrec, despite the fact that these women aren't particularly attractive, has been able to give them dignity, despite the undignified thing he shows them doing. The look on their faces, and again, the psychology of the point of view. Of course, he's 4'1", so they are looking down on him. But once you start to get that point of view down like that, I see you down there, little Henry. You know, I know what you're doing, and you're drawing me, and you really shouldn't be right now. Right? But each of the two of them has, even this older prostitute in front, he's given them each the sense of having a personality, right, that's very, very strong that comes through the images. So these pictures by Toulouse-Lautrec are all entirely autobiographical, right? They're all the world that he frequented. Show you something more lurid. Want something a little bit more lurid? Apparently, this is the big rumor, right? It's been there for decades or almost a century. Is that one of the whorehouses in Paris has his Henry preserved. That in addition to having the weak bones, he was apparently incredibly well endowed. They called him the little teapot. And rumor has it, right, this has never been proven, and I don't know if it ever will be, that one of the whorehouses has it preserved, right? Which is kind of, yeah. So, and for me, it kind of gives that look a little bit something extra as well, because he sort of knows something about him as well. Well, that's a lurid note to end on, but like I said, this Toulouse-Lautrec, we're talking about things we haven't talked about before, because these works are really about his life, about everything that he saw and experienced that were based on him feeling alienated from the normal world and moving into this and circulating in this demi-monde in a way that is very different from Degas, right? Degas comes into these things as being a member of the supporting class of this, right? The guys that paid for the ballerinas, you know? Toulouse-Lautrec comes in as sort of a member of the community in a different way, right? Which all relates to his biography. Okay, so listen, as soon as you give me your papers, I'll start to read them, probably start working on those tomorrow morning. So get this to me as soon as you can. My policy has always been if you get them to me before I start reading them, I won't count them late. But I'm planning on starting to read them tomorrow morning. My wife leaves for work at about 5:45, right? So I don't know if I'll start reading them at 5:45, but if I can get them all done before she gets home, she'll be happy. So